Today I'm honoured to sit down with Dr. Robert Glover, a renowned expert in relationships and the author of the groundbreaking book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. Dr. Glover's work has resonated with men worldwide, helping them break free from the patterns of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice that lead to unfulfilled lives. We'll explore the dynamics of how Mr. Nice Guy behaviour impacts relationships, the misconceptions some men have about what women want, and the steps they can take to create a healthier, more fulfilling connection. It's Dr. Robert Glover. Dr. Robert Glover, welcome to the show.
Anthony, it's good to be here.
How are you, my friend?
I'm well. You know, we're in a couple different time zones, so my day's just kind of getting underway. Yours is wrapping up, and looking forward to having a conversation with you.
If we were to trace the nuggets of my life, like kind of like a breadcrumb trail, it would kind of look like law, cycling, brief foray into entrepreneurship, and then podcasting. If I was to trace those kernels or breadcrumb trail for your life, how did you end up as, the relationship guy?
Well, that's actually a really early breadcrumb. How I ended up where I am now, that's probably a few more breadcrumbs along the way. So yeah, I'll go back and I probably won't say it quite as briefly as yours, but
no, please don't.
I went to college to actually be a minister. I grew up in fundamental Christian church, and I was going to go be a minister. My very first semester, I took a course in psychology 101, and I absolutely loved it. And I thought, this turns me on. So my degree program contained both ministry and psychology. It's interesting. I almost dropped. I thought about dropping out of high school because I was so bored. I didn't enjoy it. But by the time I got to college, I was liking it better. And I thought, yeah, I'll get my degree and be done. But I kind of kept liking it. So I went and got a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Then I went and got a PhD in marriage and family therapy. So I was done with my education by 29. Then I was a minister for a couple more years. I kind of self-destructed on that one and left being a minister. And I already had my doctorate in marriage and family therapy, so I started trying to build. Actually, I started looking for a job, and I couldn't really find one, so I started installing Murphy beds for beds that fold down out of the wall. So there's a breadcrumb, and worked for a small company, and then the owner was very supportive of me, building my own business. So I built my own private practice as a marriage and family therapist. Then I got my own ass into therapy and recovery when my second wife said she was going to leave me. She said, everybody thinks you're a nice guy, but you're not. You're passive aggressive. You're mean. You embarrass me. You don't follow through on things. I can't trust you. And I thought, all right, you're the one that's never happy, but okay, I'll go get some help. And luckily, I ended up in some good places. I ended up in a 12-step group, ended up in a men's therapy group, ended up with a therapist, and started seeing this pattern in me around, oh, I'm a nice guy. Everybody should like me and love me and appreciate me. And my wife should appreciate me and not find fault in me and want to have sex with me. And none of those things were happening. And I started noticing as a marriage therapist that guys were coming to me with their wives or girlfriends saying, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her whatever she wants. It's never enough. She's never happy. She's always in a bad mood. She never wants to have sex anymore. When's it going to be my turn? I thought, I can finish these guys' sentences for them. I'm not the only one. Then there were another group of guys that I didn't immediately connect, but nice guys as well. These were the single guys. And they're going, I've got lots of female friends. They all tell me I'm a great guy. I listen to them talk about their problems with their ex or their jerk boyfriend. I help them out when they need a ride, when they don't have a car payment, I'll help out. And they all tell me, some lucky woman, is going to be so fortunate to have you someday. You're such a great guy. But these guys said, these women don't want me. Right? They think somebody else is going to be lucky to have me, but they don't see me as boyfriend material. That was before maybe the friend zone terminology.
I was just shutting down the word friend zone as you were saying.
So this is 25, 30 years ago. So maybe a little bit before that vocabulary. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group almost 30 years ago, I guess, probably a little bit more. And we met every other week, and I started writing just I write. If something comes to me, I write it down. And I was sharing these lessons that I was learning with the guys. And over a while, they and their wives and girlfriends saying, Robert, you should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. A lot of guys need this. So over a period of 6 to 7 years, I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy. Took 3 more years to find a publisher because a lot of publishers said, Robert, we like your book. It's well done, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. That's so untrue. Men buy self-help books all the time.
It's all I buy.
But that was kind of pre-Amazon and pre-podcast, where guys would listen to a podcast, hear about a book, go on Amazon, click the link, and Amazon would say, people who bought this book, and this book. And guys will click on all of those, right? I don't know if they read them, but they buy them. So men do buy a self-help book, and my royalty checks keep getting bigger every year. So, men buy books. So that was 22 years ago. No More Mr. Nice Guy came out early 2000s. Went through another divorce. I went through a period of life where I was single for about 12 years, which is a really great adventure. I really learned to take good care of myself and differentiate and live life on my terms. And I had some good relationships along the way. Got married again about 7.5 years ago to a woman I met down here in Mexico where I live. I moved to Mexico during that time as well.
Nice.
I've written three more books since No More Mr. Nice Guy, 2 on dating and 1 I co-authored with another coach. And so here I am in my 60s living in Mexico. Recently launched a new program for men called Integration Nation. So I'm building a men's membership program. It just actually launched a year ago, July 2023. So I'm still having a good time. And really still focusing most of my work around men and their relationships, whether they're single or in a relationship.
So let's dig into that a little bit. When you talk about Mr. Nice Guy, what's the set of characteristics that define Mr. Nice Guy?
Well, it's typically, to kind of give you what's underneath the characteristics, there's basically a core emotional belief that maybe not very conscious, maybe very unconscious. It was internalized at a young age. I'm not okay just as I am. I'm not good enough. So nice guys are basically trying to do 2 things coming from that place of not okayness, not good enough. One thing they're trying to do is they try to become what they think other people want them to be in order to be liked and loved and get their needs met. So they're approval seeking continuously. So like, for example, if I was in nice guy mode talking to you, I'd watch every movement, every nod, every time you looked up, every time you looked away, every time you tensed. I'd be thinking, all right, did I say that right? Did I get that? Okay, he didn't like that. So I would be trying to measure everything for your approval. The second thing that nice guys tend to do is they hide anything about them that they think might get a negative response. So they hide their wants, their needs, their desires, their opinions, their sexuality is a really big thing that nice guys hide. So nice guys are walking the planet thinking, if I just become what I think everybody else wants me to be, hide anything about me, that even hide it from themselves, right? I've done a lot of that in my lifetime. And hide anything that might get a negative reaction, then I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met. And unfortunately, that doesn't usually work well. For single guys, it maybe just kind of ends them in the friend zone because they're so uninteresting. They're seeking approval, seeking validation, trying to get women to like them, which doesn't usually make women like you, right? Just kind of makes them walk on you. And if they're in a relationship, they're spending all their time hiding stuff from their partner that might get a negative reaction, trying to please their partner, trying to keep everything copacetic and, on the level. And then, again, hiding things from their partner like, again, well, they want to go hang out with their guy friends, but they're afraid she might get upset, so they don't. Or they might want to explore something sexually, but, oh, shit, I don't know how she'll react, so I won't bring that up. And so there's a lot of this seeking approval, avoiding disapproval, validation, what I call anxiety management, where I try to manage the people and situations outside of me so I don't feel anxious on the inside, as opposed to what I would call self-soothing or anxiety soothing, where I soothe my anxiety so I can lean into what's ever going on the outside rather than trying to manage the people or those situations. Often, believe it or not, a lot of dishonesty, which you think is paradoxical, for a nice guy to be fundamentally dishonest. But if you're constantly, trying to read what you think other people want from you, you're not authentic. There is no integrity in that. So nice guys are often far from honest. I say that nice guys are often good at being good, but not great at being great. We may do moderately well in work and career, moderately healthy, moderately financially okay, but usually, we leave too much on the table, or our codependent relationships pull us away from our own path, our own desires, our own freedom, our own differentiation.
It almost sounds like you're describing like a Hollywood actor who's trying to play a part. And as you're talking, I'm trying to understand, what's the part they're trying to play? Like, what defines that character that they're trying to become? Is it a societal expectation? Is it a family expectation?
All of the above. What describes it, the nice guy syndrome can affect a lot of people. I mean, there's nice girls out there. There's nice straight guys. There's nice gay guys. I mean, it can manifest in a lot of ways, but really a very common underlying dynamic is the seeking of women's approval. Now, I see it even with gay men. And, even, of course, they have no desire to even have sex with women, but they're still seeking of female approval, because there's kind of almost this cultural meme nowadays is don't piss off the woman. So, don't do anything, if you're talking to a woman, well, don't do anything that, might get a negative reaction if you want her to go out with you or eventually sleep with you. Or in the workplace, well, better not piss off that woman. I might get called into HR. There's just this theme around don't piss off the woman, which makes sense because if you think about it, everybody, when we're born, we come into this world, we're completely needy and helpless and dependent. And our first caregivers are usually women, our mother, nannies, babysitters, preschool, daycare, even in elementary school, most of our teachers are women. So it makes sense that our earliest years where we develop our personality and how do I get by in this world? How do I get my needs met? How do I get love and approval? Is how do I get the love and approval of the woman in front of me?
And it's a difficult thing to do, to not piss people off, because I have a friend who's
it's impossible. It's impossible.
And, he talked to me quite a lot about, handicaps. And one of the things he said to me is like, we're at the start, we're getting to know each other. You're kind of feeling out, well, what is the socially appropriate grammar to describe someone who's blind, visually impaired? Like if he walks into a lamppost, do I make fun of him? Do I not make fun of him? We're friends. And you're trying to navigate that dynamic. And he said to me at one point, a line that stuck with me, and it's very applicable to the society we're living in now. The offence is taken, it's not given. And I thought, well, that's brilliant, because you can only be yourself. Yeah. And if someone chooses to take offense to who I am, well, like that's on them. It's not really on me.
And that's such an interesting concept. And it's why, nice guys do end up in the friend zone. It's why they do end up often being isolated and disconnected. I say in No More Mr. Nice Guy that people don't connect with, I call nice guys Teflon man. We're just so smooth and nothing sticks to us. But I say in there that the people connect with other people's rough edges, with who we are. And when I was teaching men, when I had to learn to date in my late 40s after my second divorce, I quickly learned that trying to be nice and get the approval of women just bored them. It created no polarity. And when I realized, wait a minute, my job is actually to get to rejection quickly. Find out quickly, does this woman like me, who I am with my quirky sense of humor, my judgments, my biases, my opinions, what turns me on, what turns me off. I got to find that out quickly. So I started really quickly learning, I just had to act on impulse and blurt. If something came to my mind, I said it. Sometimes later on I thought, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have said it quite that. and like one example of this, I remember I dated a woman for a few months. It was a really great woman. And we stayed friends after we broke up. And no real bad reason to break up other than there just wasn't enough chemistry. But she was great. And I remember like on our second date, we met at a bar in the afternoon, got a drink, and then we were going to go take a walk along the waterfront. And she said, well, let me go to the restroom first. So she walked to the bathroom, came back, and I said, well, I got to go to the bathroom too. And I said, by the way, I really enjoyed watching you walk away from me. Which is another way of saying, I like looking at your backside, you know? And as soon as I said it, I thought, oh, fuck, maybe that was the wrong thing. How's she going to take it? Well, she told me months after we broke up, after dating for a few months. She said, do you remember on our second date when you said that to me? And I said, yeah, I kind of thought maybe I'd blown it. She goes, it really turned me on. And I go, good. That was good affirmation that you're not going to turn anybody on by playing it safe, by being smooth, by avoiding anything. And what we will do is we'll create a polarity that people either go, I really like this guy. I like hanging out with him. I don't know why. I just kind of like being with him. He tickles, my sense of humor. He says out loud the things I'm thinking, but just don't say out loud. Or they'll go, that guy's a jerk. Somebody should punch him in the face. I don't even want to see him again. That's good. Find that out, that these people don't want to hang out with you. So you're not trying to get their approval and validation when they don't really even like you. So yeah, that offense is taken, not given. Now, of course, you can be a jerk. You could say hurtful things to people, and I don't encourage that. But I do encourage, be you. Be you. Take that risk of being you. Because like guys will tell me, that are single, and they go, how come women aren't attracted to me? Everybody says just be you. But apparently being me doesn't seem to be working so well. And I said, who was the last person you actually let see you? Do you let you see you? Do you let people know how anxious you are? How much time you waste on social media? How much time you spend jerking off to porn, on the internet? How judgmental you are? How critical you are? How depressed you wake up every? Do you let people see that? Well, no. Well, how can they know you then? How could you don't let the world see you? So I'm a big fan of men learning, everybody, but the men I work with are about learning what I call to be integrated and authentic. Be the you that you are, and people are either going to like that or they're not. And if we can get okay with either one, yeah, life's pretty interesting.
I haven't been single for a few years. I'm probably 6 years since I've been single. So I had 2 long-term relationships almost back to back, which took my entire 20s and then into early 30s. And then I found myself single for probably a period of 3 years. And since then, friends that are single, I'll be talking to them, say, I've no luck in dating. What should I do? What did you do differently? And I find myself kind of analysing that period of my life and going, what did I do differently? And definitely I'm a believer in there's, no matter how quirky your kinks, no matter how quirky your interests, there's a counterpoint on the other side. There's somebody else, whether it's a heterosexual relationship, there's another girl out there who has the same or complementary interests, who has the same or complementary kinks, who has the same or complementary. And it's just by getting to that and being authentic and being not a version of yourself, actually being your true self, that you start to resonate with those. But another thing that I started to figure out how to get to those, because there's a lot of sieving to do, I started the funnel quite wide. So I started dating apps like Tinder, and I would arrange a lot of coffee dates. So, in any week, and it sounds crazy, like looking back, I might have 20 coffee dates in a given week. But the coffee
that was a period of time where you didn't have a job, right?
Yeah, I was riding the bike full time at the time, so I didn't have. So I was going kind of 3 a day, morning, lunch, dinner, but really short coffee dates. So my idea was to get to rejection fast, because a roadblock here could be I'm texting somebody on WhatsApp or Tinder for 2-3 weeks, and it's going back and forth, and then I meet them and I instantly go, well, there's no attraction, like on either part. So it's like I need to get that funnel narrowed faster. And for me, that worked really well. The quick coffee date and then go, no, pass. Or you get to the next layer of the system where we'll actually go to a proper date.
I agree. I preach that I learned that I learned that the hard way pretty early in my dating, like again in my late 40s. I grew up during the feminism of the 60s and 70s. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Women can pay their own way. They can be independent. And I started going on these dates that like maybe people would set me up with, or maybe on Match.com. I was pre-Tinder and Bumble times. I never got to experience it. I'm grateful, actually. Yeah, the stories I hear. And I watch people on Tinder and I go, fuck, get a life. They're constantly, no. Anyway, my friends come down to Mexico and they get on Tinder and start looking for, the hot mamacitas around here. So But I went on a couple dates, and I went with one. My chiropractor hooked me up with her friend, and we go on this date. And, I was just learning to date. And we go out to dinner, order a salad, appetizers, had a bottle of wine, some, food, got a, dessert, and the bill comes. And, I get $100-something, and this is like 20 years ago. So that's a chunk of change. And, and the woman just sits there, and I pick it up. And there's a woman around my age. She'd been married, and her husband, I knew who her husband was. He was actually a public figure, her ex-husband. So he was actually a university coach from where I grew up. And so I thought, well, she's not poor. She's not poorly divorced. And so I pull out my American Express and put it on it. She doesn't make a move, doesn't say a thing. And I thought, what happened to women's liberation that they're going to pay their own way or pay half the bill? And I quickly realized that after a couple, $100 meals, I couldn't do it that way. I'd go broke. And, I didn't even know if I liked this person, and I'm spending $100 on them. And, I didn't even want to have sex with them, and I've spent $100 on them. So I quickly went to that, coffee date, get on the date quickly, not a lot of talking online. You can fall in love with somebody talking online. You meet them in person and go, what, did your roommate write those texts? This doesn't even seem like the person I've been texting. I've had that experience. And so I learned to just do the coffee date and just find out, is she a cool chick? Is she interesting enough that you want to go on a second date with her? But yeah, and guys will come to me and say, well, Robert, I've got all these one and done coffee dates. They're not panning out. And I go, that's how they're supposed to be. Dating is a series of bad picks, right? Like I said, it's a wide funnel. If everybody married the first person they went on a date with, I guess that would be pretty amazing, pretty cool. But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. So it's normal to go on a lot of coffee dates. Man, you're going on a lot more than I ever did. I had to cycle on and off of dating. I'd really get into it for about a month, Match.com. Mostly I did most of mine just being out in public and connecting with people that way and just meeting people socially. I just worked at being a social animal, but I used Match.com as well. But yeah, I found that if I can get to rejection quickly, I don't waste so much time. And I do it for a month or so, go really intense, and take like 2 or 3 months off. And it's usually when I wasn't actively dating that I would meet the most interesting people that I would end up dating because I wasn't actually looking to date.
I had a fascinating conversation with a cab driver a few months ago. He was a lad of Indian descent, and he spoke to me about his arranged marriage. So he's been in an arranged marriage for 20 years, said he's blissfully happy. And, we dug a little bit deeper, and we actually had a real conversation past the surface level you'd normally have with a cab driver. And he was contrasting it to the behaviour he sees from his Irish male friends. He said, in particular, the kind of more eligible, the good-looking lads who aren't kind of really struggling with dating. He said what he finds with them is they're constantly looking for the perfect girl. They're looking for this, person, the Helena Troy, the 10 out of 10, that's, mythical beauty with this personality, sense of humor, sporty, everything that he's ever dreamt he could be. So when he gets somebody who's the 9 out of 10, he goes, it's not the 10 out of 10. And his experience was you get paired with someone and you start to get to know them in the first 2-3 months and you go, we have massive incompatibilities here, but we're stuck together for the rest of our lives. So what do? Well, we figure out how to work around those incompatibilities. How do you think about that contrast in those two totally disparate systems of finding love?
Yeah. And actually, neither of them are about finding love. That's the thing we have to get realistic about. The people with arranged marriages never thought it was about love. Now, if we think that, the hookup culture of the swipe right apps is about love, it's not either. In fact, the idea of that you get together for love has only existed in human culture for maybe 200 years out of 1.5 million that we've kind of been walking around. And I heard that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet to show the fallacy of romantic love. We love each other so much, let's kill ourselves, right? That's a fallacy of romantic love. So you opened the door for me. So let's talk about, the hookup culture, the swipe right. I came across a couple of pretty pretty publicized studies. They're both about maybe 4 or 5 years old now, and I have to go back and look at and reread these studies to get the details. And they're based on people in America, United States. One of them was, in a nutshell, and I'm roughly paraphrasing, that for the first time since they started tracking relationship numbers, doing census, that for the first time, over half of all people, men and women, 35 and younger, reported not having been in a relationship in the last year. So I mean, over half 35 people would say, I'm single and haven't had a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a partner in over a year. That's a phenomenal statistic.
Yeah.
The other statistic from a different study that kind of echoed it, and it was based, I think, just on men. And it was like, 25 or below, 21 below, something. I don't remember the exact detail. But it said over half of men, like, well, there's 25, 21 young adult men and below, down to like 18, 16, whatever it was, report not having had sex in the last year. And maybe some of them never. Okay. And you think, well, wait a minute. If we're driven to connect and relate, most of us want relationship. Most of us want sex. And if there's anybody that should be having a lot of sex, it's 22-year-old guys, right? It's not 68-year-old guys like me, right? That's not what Mother Nature wants. It wants, the young guys with good, healthy DNA impregnating, the young, healthy women. So those statistics are interesting in light of the reality that guys can go to, pick up boot camps and learn how to just go pick out, do their day game, their night game, how do you go pick up women? We have the swipe right apps. We have Instagram. We've got Facebook. We've got everything under the sun where men and women can find out, is there somebody right around the corner from you where you're sitting in a bar somewhere? Like I said, my buddies come down here to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and they're on their apps looking for, both tourists that are here and Mexican women that know, oh, there's a lot of tourists that come here. Get on the apps. We'll get some nice dates from these tourists down here. So here we have men and women both have unlimited ability to connect and access. Why aren't more people in relationship? And why aren't more people getting laid? If that's kind of really what most people are out there trying to do. My theory about this goes back to what you were just talking about, the Indian cab driver. Men nowadays can see unlimited beautiful women, naked, right? Unlimited. You get on Instagram, you can just see unlimited beautiful women. The women posting on Tinder and Bumble and what's the other one? Where people looking for more out there kind of stuff. There's so many of them now. The swipe right apps. You can get still on Mash.com, Plenty of Fish, all that stuff. You can find countless beautiful women. Just watch television commercials. You see countless beautiful women. Our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, maybe saw 3 beautiful women in their entire lifetime and probably didn't see any of them naked. Now just go to any mall and watch women walk around in their Lululemon, and it doesn't leave anything for the imagination, right? That's where we live. So guys can see unlimited beautiful women. And I've had guys tell me, well, unless I can date a 10, I'm not going to date at all. And I go, that's like saying, unless I can drive a Bentley, I'm not going to drive. Start with a fucking Honda Civic, It's okay. Fuck a few fatties, get your chops about you, kind of learn your skill sets, right? And get some confidence about you. But because they can sit and look at porn, Instagram, Hollywood actresses, and just see beautiful women right and left and go, why should I settle for anything less than the most beautiful woman I can see? And like your Indian friend said, your taxi driver said, maybe they even get an 8 or a 9, but they still look around and go, wait a minute, there's 10s out there. If I settle for this 8 or 9, that precludes me having an opportunity to go for these other 9s or 10s. Now, maybe these guys have no fucking social skills and wouldn't even talk to the 9 or 10 if they saw her. They still have the belief that they could. But
I wonder, actually, does this go even further? I wonder, say if you take someone we'll use this scoring system of 1 to 10, because I think most people are familiar with it from kind of bar talk. So if you take a male friend who's a 2 or a 3 out of 10, and he has this expectation from looking at Pornhub, Instagram, wherever, that he should be dating 9s and 10s out of 10s. And he does have the confidence to go and approach an 8 or 9 out of 10. And he's shot down. He does it again, he's shot down. He does it again, he's shot down. He does it again, he's shot down. does he at that point then give up? And does that start feeding into and explaining the statistic you're talking about as to why so few people are having sex? Like, basically what I'm getting at here is, I'm wondering, is there a very small percentage, the top 5% of people are having 95% of the sex?
Yeah, it's at least an 80-20 rule, that 20% are having 80% of the sex. I think a lot of factors enter in. Yeah, if you don't have the social skills to even talk to women in general, and if the only women you talk to are really attractive, which means all the other guys out there are talking to those women, which leads me to the second part of the equation. And I'll come back, I think, to talk more about your question there. Second part of the equation is on the women's side. So the guys have that fear of missing out, the FOMO. Even if I get a hot woman, I'll miss out on other hot women that might come along. So they don't ever get any women. But maybe it's partly they either don't try or they get shot down, and so they just give up. Add to that everything on the internet, I call the internet sex, porn, safe sex. There's no rejection, there's no failure, no premature ejaculation, no inability to get an erection, nobody to shame you, nobody you have to give multiple orgasms to, nobody's going to talk about you on social media afterwards. It's safe. So yeah, I'll go that route. And most guys convince themselves, well, I'll just do it for now until I get that really hot girlfriend, then I'll quit doing it. But the fact that they're doing it usually makes them so judgmental of women that they don't ever get the hot woman anyway, and they don't actually date women who might actually be a good partner, prospect. And maybe they're not 10s, but maybe they're a great partner prospect. And they just guys don't want to give up that easy access to that safe sex. Okay. On the other side of the equation, I'll throw that out there. The women, they're getting constant attention. If they are moderately good looking or better, not too old, will even pose a little bit sexy, whatever, they have constant attention from men. And they're on the swipe right apps. And so if they're thinking, well, that guy seems like a pretty good guy, they go out on a date with him. He's a good guy. I liked him. I had a good time. Oh, but another guy wants to take me out. Well, I'll go out with the other guy. Well, this other guy wants to take me out. Well, even though that one guy went out with, I liked him. He's a good guy. If I just go out with him, I miss out on all the constant attention from all these other men that are wanting to text me, message me, chat with me, take me out. So they've got that FOMO as well, but it's a little different one. For the men, it's like, I'll miss out on getting a 10 or the next younger, hotter 10 than the 10 I maybe get lucky enough to get. For the women, it's like, I'll miss out on all that constant attention and all those date offers from all the other men if I just settle one. So we've got this hookup culture where nobody ever does like the Indian guy that goes, you know what? Let's actually get to know each other. Let's find out about each other. Let's see where we connect. Let's see where we struggle. Let's have a journey. Nobody does that because that's hard work. There's a lot involved in that, and none of us naturally do it very well. So the guys are just going to keep looking at porn, and the women are just going to keep going out with all these, countless men that keep hitting them up on Tinder. So that's my theory about why nobody's in a relationship and nobody's getting laid.
So what's the solution for the 40 plus male who's listening to this podcast right now, who I'm sure there's females and younger and older, but just I think that's a fair representation of a good chunk of our audience. What's their solution if they're single and they're looking to date? They're looking to navigate this complex ecosystem you've painted.
All right. This is purely everything I'm sharing so far is just my point of view, my opinion, but it seems to play out. I started dating in my late 40s, and I got married the first time 2 days after I graduated from college. So I was 21. Was married to that woman for about 10 years. And then my second wife, I actually met her while I was married to the first woman. I had an affair. So there was no real overlap between. So I was married for 25 years and never had lived alone as an adult male. So I get divorced from my second wife in my late 40s. I had already written No More Mr. Nice Guy. In fact, the book was just coming out when I split with my second wife. Had already done a lot of work on me, a lot of therapy, was really getting comfortable in my own skin. And so I got out in the dating world and had no clue where to start. My first two sex partners were my first two wives. So I was not particularly sexually experienced, even though I kind of prided myself on being good in bed, but I really only had an N of 2. So, that was just ego. And I found out I was wrong. And so I listened, I read the game that had just come out by Neil Strauss. I started, picking up on David D'Angelo's Double Your Dating. Clients were giving me DVDs. That's back when you watched DVDs, books to read. And I just did a deep dive into how do you interact with women. I quickly realized I didn't like the whole pickup scene. It seemed fake, which it is, and phony. And I think intrusive to women. And I think demeaning to both men and women. I think if a man says, I'm only going to go talk to tens, well, I think that's kind of demeaning to self. That's saying I'm a pretty shallow guy, and if it's demeaning to women, meaning I'm only talking to you because you got great tits, no other reason. And so, instead, what I did is I went towards becoming, my term is just more of a social animal, where if there was anything I could do out of my house rather than doing it in my house, I went into public. And I'd go listen to music. I'd take my laptop to coffee shops. I'd take my newspaper out to read it. I'd go work out in the gym. I'd go to have dinner at happy hours and bars and restaurants. And I just started interacting with everybody around me. And as I interacted, I practiced being bold and being myself and taking risk and just getting to rejection quickly with men and women both, just interacting. And women started paying attention to me. And I started getting their numbers, and I started noticing about every 6 months, I'd have to go through my phone and delete all the Jessicas and Sarahs and Alyssas. I didn't know who they were, Oh, I just had their first name.
This is a running joke actually in my house because my fiance now is called Sarah. And in my mobile phone, I have Sarah Tinder 1, Sarah Tinder 2, Sarah Tinder 3, and Sarah Tinder 4.
Exactly. And so who are all, I don't even remember which one's which, And so, but I started getting successful on going on dates and having sex. And I also, because I've been kind of sexually sheltered, inexperienced, I also made a commitment to myself that I would say yes to every sexual opportunity that presented itself. So I slept with a lot of different women, just because I chose to. And I call that my integrated man whore phase, where I just said yes to every sexual opportunity. And one of the things I learned, and guys have a hard time accepting this, the best sex during all this period of years where I just, for a period of years where I slept with, anybody that showed interest was not the tens. The tens were the worst. They couldn't orgasm, they were frigid. They just whatever. They were the worst. They were the pillow princesses. They don't move. They expect you to do something. The ones that were not the tens usually really liked sex and were usually pretty kinky. And, they were happy to introduce you to their kink. I learned a lot of kinky stuff just because I started saying yes to all these women. So it was a great experience. And I enjoyed every aspect of it. Now, over time, I just came to the realization, all right, this isn't as fulfilling. I'm glad I did it. I know I can get laid. I know I can get laid by multiple women. And so I just started narrowing it down to where I started going slower and quit having sex as quickly because I wanted to find out, do I like this person? Do I want to hang out with them? And so but I had to go through that phase. So, going through that period of time was so powerful for me. Just because, again, I just worked at being a social animal. I just got out of the house. I talked to people, and I didn't wait till a beautiful woman walked in the room that I'd go try to start a conversation. I was having conversations with baristas, with bartenders, with waitresses, with people next to me on a bus, people at a baseball game. I just started how's your day going so far? Think it's ever going to quit raining? Been shopping? I would just start a conversation and just observe how high their interest level was in having an ongoing conversation with me. And if we hit it off, I'd require something of them. I get a number. I said, well, let's go do this, or hey, I'm going to call you. And if it was just, most conversations are going to last for 90 seconds and be done. Maybe not that long. But I wasn't trying to make anything happen. I was just knocking on the doors and, walking through the open doors and not pounding on closed doors. Pardon?
It's a wide funnel.
It's a wide funnel. And, I started saying, kind of my mantra was, what planet have I landed on? I could not believe how many women wanted to have sex with me. Women who were propositioning me, women who were saying, I don't want to date you, but I've been divorced for a few years. I haven't had sex in 6 months. I need to feel something. Women that just great women were saying, would you just have sex with me? I don't need anything else. I'm going, what planet have I landed on? Women that were getting naked on first and second dates. I never pushed a woman for sex, ever. And I never had sex. Well, I can't say I never had sex with drunk women, but I quickly learned, don't have sex with drunk women. Especially if they don't even remember it the next day. That's not a good sign.
But I think that's great advice, that kind of being a social creature. So if we have two use cases and we talk about that person as our 40 plus single, I think that's great advice to him. So maybe to our second use case, some advice, because I listen to so many podcasts, and I do like when I get a takeaway from a podcast that's kind of actionable. And I think that is very actionable for that group, to just be more social and get out more. But what about the guy who is in a relationship that's just gone a little stale? Like, is it possible to fall into these nice guy patterns inside a relationship?
And in a lot of ways, that's why it has gone stale. I work with I've worked with thousands of men, and I still work with a lot of guys, and single guys, guys in relationship, guys going through breakups. I get men at all stages of relationship connection, and what a lot of guys will tell me is they say, when I first met my girlfriend or wife, they said I wasn't such a nice guy. I would set the tone and lead. I'd be willing to get to rejection. I was bold, but after 2 or 3 months, I started, whatever you want to do, dear. You want to go somewhere? Where do you want to go for dinner? Do you want to see this movie, or what movie do you want to see? They because they got invested, right? Now there's more to lose. If things go south, it's like there's sunk cost in this relationship. We've been dating for 3 months. I like her. I don't want her to go away. So guys start playing it safe. They get nice. They leave all the decisions up to her. They don't offer a contrary opinion. They quit hanging out with their guy friends because, she might want, and so they start acting like nice guys after they get the woman. And that's when it goes stale. Either the woman's going to do something I call create emotional tension. She'll create drama. She'll be critical. She'll flirt with somebody else. She'll do something to try to create energy. If the guy isn't doing that himself, if he's not creating sufficient emotional tension for the woman to stay connected and aroused and attracted to him. But most guys, once we kind of get things good, we want to nail them down and know it's nailed down for good. And so we do that by playing it safe. I don't know. I don't know what kind of you're a cyclist. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of cycling, but I know in a lot of sports, if a team gets a big lead, there's a tendency to kind of lay back a little bit, play it safe, try not to give up the big gain, the big whatever, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, the opponents, knocked off 2 or 3 scores, and all of a sudden you got a close game again, right? And I'm sure cycling maybe it's the same way.
Yeah,
I'm going to conserve a little bit of energy now, save it for the sprint, and all of a sudden the guy's on your tail, and you go, I didn't see him coming. So when we start playing it safe, it often bites us on the ass.
So somebody that feels like that really resonates with them right now, and they're like, oh no, they're feeling a little bit flushed. The alarm bells are going off in their head. They're like, I'm falling into nice guy traps. How do you write the course here?
All right, a couple of things that I would recommend doing. One is that a real common pattern for nice guys in relationship is the bigger picture is we start giving up all of our freedoms. We quit living what's called a differentiated life. Differentiation is the ability to ask yourself, what do I want? What's important to me? And then you do it. You do it even if you have the noise between your own ears in the form of neurotic guilt or anxiety that, oh no, people aren't going to like that. Oh no, I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to get criticized. Or the change back messages from people around you. The silent treatment, the anger, the telling you're being selfish. So mature adults live differentiated lives. They ask themselves first, what do I want? What's important to me? Now, nice guys cringe at that. Oh no, that'll make me selfish. No, who'd want to be with me if I'm selfish like my father or all those jerks I've heard the women complain about? But the truth is that when a couple spends too much mundane, boring, do what you did yesterday and the day before time together, it does get boring. Any people, I mean, if you and I became best of friends and just hung out together 24/7, we'd get on each other's nerves. We'd want to, the other person to get away. So the one thing I would say to nice guys is look at where you've given away your life, your freedom. And I've said for a long time, nobody should have to give up anything that's important to them to be in a relationship. Otherwise, why would you get into relationships if that means you're required to give up things that are important to you? And where I see that the most with nice guys and their guy friends. Now, it could be the nice guys don't have many guy friends going into a relationship. That's why they're usually working hard to get a girlfriend, because they don't have any real male connection to give them social connection, social proof, just fun, just hanging out with guys. But typically, if they do have guy friends, we usually quit hanging out with them once we get with a girlfriend, because we want to spend the time with her. And we don't want her to be upset that, we're not with her every time she wants us to be. So I'd say number one, what did you give up? I talk about, personally, when I get in a relationship, I put a handcuff on my right hand, put the other handcuff on my partner's hand, give her the key, and blame her that I don't have my freedom anymore. And an interesting kind of wordplay. Yeah, I live here in Mexico, and I've learned Spanish because my wife's Mexican and doesn't speak English. But the word for wife in Spanish is esposa. Plural would be esposas. The exact same word is for handcuffs. The word for handcuffs in Spanish is esposas. You can ask a native speaker that, how do you say wives? Esposas. How do you say handcuffs? They'll go, esposas. And that's like the first time they ever thought about that the word for wives and handcuffs are the exact same word. In English, we call it the ball and chain. But the point is, it's not that our partners take away our freedom. We give it to them. Like I said, I put it on my wrist, and I give her the key, and then I resent her. But for most of us in monogamous relationships, we equate sexual monogamy with we give up not only our genitals to our partner, we give them our entire life. We give them, the veto power over anything in our life. So I say, if you want to add a little bit more energy to your life, start reconnecting with your guy friends. Now, I don't mean don't go get on Tinder, or don't go start flirting with women. Get connected with your guy friends and start asking yourselves, what passions have I given up? What values have I given up? Because I thought I needed to maintain the connection in the relationship. Start with that. I got one more for you, but I'll let you go ahead and jump in there before I share the other.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on the monogamy thing. What do you think about non-monogamous relationships? Have you seen them working?
Let me put it this way. And then this actually leads to the second thing I was going to suggest, really focusing on to liven up a relationship. I'm not like convinced, well, okay, you got to be monogamous or you shouldn't be. I don't have a preference one way or another. I am sexually monogamous to my wife. She is open. She can go sleep with whoever she wants. And that's something that we began about 2.5, 3 years ago. And so far it's worked out really well. I don't want to have sex with anybody but her. And at 68, I don't have that real strong of a sex drive. She's younger. She loves sex. She loves all kinds of sex with both men and women. I can't give her all that. And so she's free to go do that if she chooses. So I'm not going to preach one is better than the other. And I've worked with people in open relationships, and I've worked with a lot of people mostly, monogamous relationships. Here, I've often said that long-term pair-bonded sexual relationships with the opposite sex are not in our human DNA. They're not meant to work. We've been trying to make them work since some of our kind of dumb forefathers invented patriarchy about 10,000 years ago. And that just, the most rich and most powerful men got the best young women. All the rest of the guys lived in poverty and settled for whatever leftovers were there. We still kind of live under that system. So our ancestors had access. Mother Nature likes lots of penises and lots of vaginas. Our ancestors were communal. Everybody had sexual access. Mother Nature does not like monogamy. I've often said that monogamy is evolutionary sin. Mother Nature wants a diversity of lots of penises and lots of vaginas and lots of sperm donors taking ownership of that child, because 4 or 5 guys may say it could be my kid. That's actually a good thing for raising a child. That's not going to work in modern culture, but that's how it used to work for about 1.5 million years. We're not going back there. But what makes any relationship have the opportunity to work as well as it has the potential is honesty. It's transparency. And that was the second piece I was going to add, whether you're in a monogamous. If you're in a non-monogamous relationship, it requires even more honesty and transparency than even the average, because I coach people in non-monogamous relationships. And I tell you what, you've got to be honest and transparent with 3 or 4 or 5 people, not just one. And 3 or 4 or 5 different people might have different reactions to your honesty and transparency. So if nice guys, start asking yourself, what haven't you been sharing with your partner? What have you been holding back? Now, whether it's a resentment, whether it's an ask, whether it's a desire, whether it's the freedoms that you feel like you've given up, start being honest, start being real. I've never seen a boring relationship that was honest. Most boring relationships, people quit being honest a long time ago.
Is there a strategy to engineer the environment for that honesty? I know so many people are in quite routine lives where it's wake up in the morning, go to work, come home, and energy is not a finite source. It's a depleted resource that when we get home in the evening, if we've worked all day...
Some people would actually argue with that assertion. Some people would say it actually is unlimited, depending on what we're doing with it. I don't know which camp I'm in, but
yeah. but you know what, that, like, how do you create the space then? In either case, how do you create the space to have those conversations that are honest?
You know what? I hear what you're saying. I launched a new company a year ago, and my wife has mentioned a time or two. We just went up. We were out camping for a couple of weeks, and we had a lot of time together. And she's mentioned a time or two. I haven't seen you a lot in the last year. And I go, you're right. I said, I've been busy. But we got out, we went camping. We're going to go camping some more in a couple months. But I do make the time, to spend with my wife. Now, the being honest part, you can spend a lot of time with a person and still not be honest. You can spend a lot of time with somebody and you not know them and they not know you, right? And I've seen that, and I've been there. So what I started doing way back early in my second marriage, when my then second wife confronted me, she says, everybody thinks you're a nice guy, but you're not. You need to go get therapy. So I did. I realized, even though as a nice guy, I thought I'm a nice guy, I'm a good guy, I'm a moral guy, I was not particularly honest. I had a lie coach in my head. They coached me on how to lie about stuff. Tell her this way, leave this part out. Distract her attention from that. Make up this story, right? And if you start listening, most of us have that lie coach. If we just, he's giving us nonstop advice. Oh, he got that look on his face. Don't say that again. Don't, whatever. So what I realized is that, for example I give, my then wife would call me at work and said, when are you going to be home? And I'd think, oh, she wants me home soon. I'll tell her 5 o'clock, because I think that's what she wants to hear. I knew I couldn't leave my office before 5. And so, I leave my office 5:30-ish, 5:45, whatever. And then all the way home, I'm thinking, it's only about less than a mile from my office to the house. All the stories, the traffic was terrible. There's an accident. The stoplight was stuck, blah, blah. And, I get home and just make up the story. And then she goes, it didn't matter to me what time you came home. I just wanted to know so I'd know when to have dinner ready. And dinner's been ready since 5:15, and now it's 6 and you're just getting here. So what I started doing is whenever I heard that lie coach going off in my head, I would go to my wife. This doesn't actually take a lot of time. You don't have to plan a time every night to do it. You just do it when you notice it. If I notice a lie coach, I'd say, hey, I need to tell you this. I was going to tell you a lie. I just tell it that directly. I was going to tell you a lie. Here's the lie I was going to tell you. And I'd tell her what the lie coach was coaching me up to say. I said, here's the truth. I knew I couldn't leave the office at 5. I thought you wanted me home now. So I told you I'd be home at 5, and I knew I couldn't do it. That was a lie as well. That's the truth. I just couldn't make it home in time. And that's it. And, you know, I used to tell my second wife, her middle name ought to be Overreact, because that's what she tended to do in most situations. The funny thing was, when I'd come home and tell her, I was going to lie to you, here's the lie, here's the truth, she never overreacted. She'd go, okay, just tell me the truth next time. I go, okay, deal. And it's funny, when I just started getting honest by telling her the lie I was going to tell her, she felt safer. She realized she could trust me, because I was going to come out myself to her. And I found for women, trust is everything. I've often said for women, trust equals lust. If we fuck with a woman's trust, we're going to fuck with her lust. And that's why a lot of times things really do get stale in these relationships, just because the woman doesn't have a foundation of trust that she wants to open and let this guy penetrate her, you know, emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever. So that honesty thing is huge. And especially if you're going to be anything but monogamous, it even gets bigger, because you're going to have to manage more moving parts. And you better be telling the whole truth, nothing but the truth, to all those moving parts. If you want it to, a guy I'm coaching, I told you, this guy started out a year ago, said he had a girlfriend, and he said, I want to experience sexual novelty. I want to become non-monogamous. I said, okay, let's work together. He now has 4 or 5 partners that he sees. You know, each one has their kind of day of the week. Each relationship's different. They all know about other partners. They all know he's not exclusive. Each partner has their own ups and downs. But he just left me a couple messages today with 3 or 4 different women that he's been with, all in different contexts, who basically left him messages, or he just had a conversation the last day, all telling them what an amazingly powerful, trusting, you know, energizing experience they've had from being with him. Mainly because the guy's been honest and transparent with every one of them. And I promise you, most women have not experienced that very much from men, the honesty and transparency. It's a foreign experience for the majority of men.
If this has connected with people, Robert, what's the best place for them to continue this conversation with you? Can you shout out your books? And you mentioned a course you're working on as well.
Well, it's just books are No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's when people mention my book, that's usually what they're referring to. It's been out about 20 years. I've written a couple of dating books, Dating Essentials for Men, Frequently Asked Questions. And then a coach of mine wrote, he did most of the writing, I did most of the editing, a book that's just kind of an overlay of all the stuff I've taught or written, and it's called The Big Stick. Coach's name is Tony Endelman, and my name's on there as well. And if they just want to come find my courses, my workshops, go to drglover.com, drglover.com. If they're interested in my men's membership program, integrationnation.net. So that's how you track me down.
Dr. Glover, I've absolutely loved this conversation. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. It was fun.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please click up here. There's another video I know that you're absolutely going to love. And we're just getting started, so subscriptions really matter. Click over here and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing upcoming guests.